university ranking that probably some years ago, many of us don't even want to come near, serve multiple purposes in our university system. They are not merely numerical exercises or competitive lists. They are powerful instruments for quality assurance, for strategic planning, and institutional improvement. Over the years, we found that they've helped us to benchmark our performances. Ranking allows universities to benchmark themselves against peers, both within Africa and globally. By understanding their relative strengths and weaknesses, institutions can adopt best practices, refine their strategies, and enhance their academic, research, and community engagement outcomes. We've also found out that ranking has helped our universities to attract investments and talents. For African universities to thrive, they really must attract the best students, faculty, and research partnership. Ranking provides the perspectives for students and academia to assess our credibility and have comparable information about us. But what I like most is that ranking is helping us to drive excellence, institutional excellence. The process of preparing for ranking evaluations encourages universities to strengthen research output, teaching quality, internationalization, and graduate employability. This in turn fosters a culture of continuous improvement and accountability in our various institutions. I'm glad to be associated with QS ranking, the QS as an organization. I think the first time I was connected with them was when I was invited to Morocco at the launch of one of the African events. The QS World University rankings are recognized globally for their rigorous methodology and credibility. Their entry into the Sub-Saharan Africa context carries profound implications in that it will help us to recognize African excellence. It's going to be data-driven, which is something that is very important now, and I believe that it's going to encourage collaboration and innovation among universities in Africa. Now we are not talking of being benchmarked against some criteria outside the African context. We are now talking of Africa. And I believe that it's not going to affect Africa alone. It's going to help us to be globally visible. As we witness the unveiling of these inaugural rankings for Sub-Saharan Africa, I urge all our stakeholders, universities, policymakers, students, and partners to view this as an opportunity, not a critique. Let it be a springboard for strengthening institutional capacity, encouraging excellence in research and teaching, enhancing international collaboration, and positioning Africa as a leader in higher education globally. It's my hope that this initiative will inspire universities across our continent to embrace continuous improvement. And let me also seize this opportunity that we are starting a new program that we call Study and Research in Africa. I'm sure that universities that will be highlighted today will participate actively in this scheme. We have some great universities in Africa, and we need to showcase them to the world. Thank you very much, and welcome to this occasion.
Let's do it again for him, for you, Wale. Thank you very much for your succinct welcoming address and highlighting your points that it's not just about data, it's about defining the narrative of excellence for Africa, and that is why we're here. We're celebrating our achievements to map the path forward for excellence and the rise for the continent. Once again, please put your hands together for yourselves, and let's give the room in that delight. The next aspect is to set the context and introduce the whole launch to us all. To help us do this is our very own Dr. Ashwin Fernandez. Put your hands together for him from QS.
so much.
Very good morning, and thank you so much for welcoming us here in Accra, Ghana, for the launch of the QS World University Rankings for Sub-Saharan African region for 2026. First and foremost, to our gracious host, Professor Olusula Oyewole, who's the Secretary General of AAU. We are deeply honored to collaborate with the association to host this launch event and interaction with all of you. We believe that we are not coming as experts from the outside, but we believe that we are here to work with you to reflect the immense possibilities Africa has and to help chart the course of the future with you as partners together. So as to this half a day program we have here today, we would like to interact with you. We'd like to understand what you are thinking of excellence as well. And as George Box, the famous statistician, said, that essentially all models are wrong, but some are useful. So we'd like of you to think of this model as a useful model, as a model which you can use to understand competition. Of course, the competition is good because you will understand how are you comparing with your peers and create a roadmap for improvement in the future. So we are really honored to be here with you for this event. So let me share, if you could have the slides up. I have a few slides as I'm talking just to give context to what I'm saying. So the story of so for many years now, we've seen that African universities, a few of them have been featuring in the World University Ranking. And while this visibility is important, it is also important to realize the cross or inter-Africa comparison is something we should be doing. So today is a historic day, and perfect. So that's my slides here. So with me today here is joined my colleague Wesley. So Wesley will be interacting with you to the course of the day, presenting on the methodology. We also have a Q&A session kept so we can have answer your queries and of course hear your perspective as well. And again, while we are going through the presentation today, do think of George Box, because there isn't a right model in the world today, and there are useful models. So keep that in mind as we move forward. It's not moving ahead. Okay, fine. So first is the mission of QS, which is empowering motivated people around the world to fulfill their potential by fostering international mobility, educational achievement, and career development. And this is where the ethos of QS is the heart of what we do at QS, is supporting students make life-changing decisions. And this is where, when QS was founded in 1990 at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, our founder, Nunzio Quacquarelli, started off with providing information on MBA programs and career opportunities. So we came out of a university, and today we're a global organization with the mission to enable students make decisions. Of course, while we want students to make decisions using our data, we are also speaking to university leaders like you who are interested in performance. We're speaking to governments who are looking at tying university rankings with national economies. And we've seen across perhaps in Asia and in the Middle East and in some parts of Central Asia, where the national visions actually have rankings linked to it. Now, the reason they are doing this is because there's a direct correlation between how the country does as an economy, as a nation, and the universities in it which prosper, which is a cycle there. Good universities support the economy, and economy then, of course, brings in better universities. Now, there are several rankings in the world today, and before we can talk a lot on the rankings, but why is it important for Africa? Why is featuring in the QS ranking important to you? As Africa internationalizes, as you go out on international collaborations, as you try to attract students, as you try to bring in faculty, as you're trying to create a global brand, QS rankings are the most referenced or referred rankings in the world today. And one of the metrics we use is Google Trends. This is public data. Once you get on a QS Top Universities portal, you get access or visibility to our increasing traffic, currently at 65 million visitors. And this is just a comparison of the three rankings which we have looked for the last year. And QS traffic by far is more than any of them. So while you are ranked in QS, your exposure as a global university also increases, besides the benefit of actually using these rankings as a comparative benchmark. So there are several rankings we have, and today we celebrate the last piece of the regional ranking puzzle. QS has been doing the QS World University Ranking for 22 years. We also have regional rankings, and the Sub-Saharan African region particularly looks at the countries in a Sub-Saharan Africa. We have removed the North Africa part, which is part of our QS Arab region ranking. So we are truly looking at performance in a Sub-Saharan region. We also have regional rankings for Asia, for the Caribbean, for Latin America as well, and the Sub-Saharan region kind of completes the part where we cover regional performance. And the regional rankings actually supports institutions to prepare for the World University Ranking. Now, the world ranking is there. We also have subject rankings. And within about a month and a half from today, we are going to be releasing 55 subject rankings in which we'll have hundreds of universities perform. So while we celebrate the Sub-Saharan African ranking, we should be looking at how do African universities position themselves in specific subject areas for the future as well. And that's something we will come back to you and we'll share data with you in the future. We also have the best student cities ranking. Now, I was here yesterday and I visited one of the university on the outskirts of Accra in Hoste. I think I can't remember the name of the place, the Academic City University. And I seen there were 100 international students on a 4-month semester here. And these students are spending different semesters abroad for the entire duration of their program. So they are not in a single university. So Africa has the potential to attract many more international students. It has a rich heritage, a rich culture. It has the economy which is growing. So the best student cities is where students are looking at where are they going to go to for their next international experience. So we can touch upon that in the future, but this is something we would like you as university leaders to pass on to your governments. Because if you're looking to become, of course, a knowledge economy, a great country where you have internationalization, the best student cities ranking is where we should be focusing on. And finally, we have the sustainability rankings. Now, this is a unique ranking where we are not looking at checking the boxes on SDGs. Okay, we are looking at actual impact on ESGs, environment, sustainability, and governance, all put together, and not just checking the boxes for SDGs, but actually seeing the impact of sustainability and environment and governance on the institution and the country. So that's a ranking which I would encourage you all to submit data. And we will touch upon today on data submission. We have today, as of today, the submission for the QS rankings for this year has closed. And I've spoken to Secretary General that we will allow a special exception for all Sub-Saharan African countries to submit data until April this year, because we want to encourage greater participation from Africa, because we believe this is where the future is for us if we have to develop our economies further. So we are coming in with you not as experts, but as partners. So that's the ranking calendar, which I just spoke about. We will start off, we've already started the data submission, or which has ended actually. We will release in June the World University ranking every year, and then the cycle ends in March with the subject rankings. So the subject ranking, which you're seeing, or which you will see later in March, and the Africa ranking, which we have today, is part of the last cycle. The next cycle submission will be opened up for you in due course, and Wesley will touch upon that. Now, the context of why we are doing what we are doing, and by 2030, this is the context which is really important. When I spoke of economies, of students, 42% of Africa's population by 2030 will fall within the age group of 15 to 24. So we have to build capacity, and we have to build capacity for good universities, of course, with global best practices and globally relevant graduates as well. QS is doing a lot of work in skills, and we are happy to work with the association to do future sessions with you all on how skills are changing curriculum globally. Tertiary enrollment rate stands at 9% compared to the global average of 38%. So this gap is not a failure, but it is an opportunity for us to do better. And we really hope that through this exercise today, we can support you in tackling many of these opportunities we will have from creating great knowledge economies, and benchmarking institutions will be important as we go ahead. So when we come to the current ranking, which was released online yesterday, we will talk about it more today. We analyzed 260 institutions across the Sub-Saharan African region, and we ranked 69. And the best part is 34 of them have never featured in any of the QS rankings before. So we have opened up avenues for diversity of institutions in our rankings. 21 locations are covered. And these 34 universities which are making a debut is just not a statistic. It is access and visibility which is going to shape their nations and their regions in the future. So the development of this ranking has not been done in isolation. And for those who have followed us, we started off in Morocco with the first Africa Forum, where we had, I think, some of you with us in Morocco. We went on to Nigeria. We were at Covenant. And then we came to Accra as well. We had the Africa Forum in Accra. And finally, the final consultation was done last year in Zanzibar. And we have consulted experts like you. We've had discussions. We tried to have indicators which are relevant, but also globally relevant as well for you. And we've looked at 50 eligible countries across the Sub-Saharan African region. And our mission was to create a model which is a roadmap for you by developing this ranking. So to all the institutions which are ranked here today, being part of this inaugural edition, I believe is a great achievement. But we should not sit on our laurels, but work further on how we can strengthen that story. I think maybe you need to click next on that. Okay. So again, these institutions which are part of it are part of the foundation. We hope that out of the 260 we have evaluated next year, we'll have more data. We'll have more data to do a larger or a bigger list of institutions. And we believe at QS that these rankings should be used strategically and responsibly, because they are a tool for benchmarking, identifying your strengths and weaknesses, and attracting partnerships from across the world. It has 9 indicators, and again, I have to reiterate, we have taken feedback as well through various experts we have consulted with. So at this point, I would like to share that we are committed towards continuous improvement, towards transparent engagement. For us to be here today with you to talk about this ranking edition means that we really want to hear your views. We might not be able to change everything immediately, but we will take your voice to our teams, and we have, of course, Wesley who will talk more. So your feedback, insights, and experience really matter to us, because this ranking must grow with the region it represents for the future of Africa, for the people of Africa. So thank you so much, Professor Oyewole, for working with us, for inviting us to your home here at the Association of African Universities. We are truly so honored to be here today. And I think this launch signals that universities in the region are stepping forward with confidence, with clarity, and with a global vision as well. So we are honored, and I'm really happy to set the context for this ranking, and I look forward to interacting with all of you through the half-day program we have here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ashwin, for setting a great context for this session. And the next part of it will be to appreciate the methodology masterclass for the QS Sub-Saharan Africa University Rankings. And to do this is the product and research advisor QS in the person of Wesley Da Silva Siqueira. You're welcome, Wesley. Put your hands together for Wesley, please. Perfect pronunciation. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to start by saying that for me, it's truly an honor and a pleasure to be here today. It's my first time in Ghana, and it reminds me a lot of home because, as you could probably figure out by the name, Wesley da Silva Siqueira, I'm from Brazil. And I would like to introduce myself by saying that it's really good to come to a place where you see people so welcoming. Also, the weather, it's totally similar to where I come from. So this already helps me to get started in the right way, to be warmly received. But also, I want to really highlight how I am happy for this occasion to have so many representatives of the higher education community across different African countries today in this venue. Also, again, would like to extend the thanks and also the congratulations for all the work of the Association of African Universities through the person of the Secretary General Oyewole. And my session is quite tricky because I want to give you lots of things to think about when you are thinking about the institution you're representing. And at the same time is the session before the cough break. So I'm supposed to give you food for thought, but also not to keep you bored when I come to all the technicalities of the ranking, which makes the ranking that we are seeing today. So first, we can begin with the Okay, I went the other way around. Is it working? Perfect. So we are going to take a look at the methodology that we have in this inaugural edition of the QS Sub-Saharan Africa Rankings 2026. And it's very important that we keep emphasizing inaugural edition because this means mainly two things. The first one is that there will be more editions in the future. And we cannot wait to see more institutions being featured in the next iterations of the ranking, as my colleague Ashwin mentioned. And also the second thing, it means that by being the inaugural edition, it means that it's not set in stone yet. So while I'm presenting those methodology indicators, those metrics in which we are evaluating these ranked universities for this edition, keep in mind that we have the will to continue receiving this feedback from the institutions, from the leaders, from the stakeholders of the region. So future methodologies probably can look like a little bit different in terms of weightings of indicators and sometimes even new indicators. This has happened before. We have regional rankings in which we piloted with certain indicators, but after hearing the feedback of those institutions, both ranked and non-ranked institutions, we decided to together collaborate in these indicator improvements and also methodology weightings. So I would like to begin with the big picture of the lenses and indicators. And this is not the methodology for the Sub-Saharan Africa rankings yet. This is the overall indicators and lenses that we use in QS for the World University rankings, including also the regional rankings. So the main idea here is that to facilitate the comprehension of where universities they are standing compared to their peers, we organize those indicators in lenses, which are basically thematic groups. You can see first of them being research and discovery, the second being employability and outcomes, learning experience, and then global engagement. And I'm going to cover each one of them to mention what are the indicators that we have selected for the Sub-Saharan Africa rankings based on this lenses framework, but also based on the context as Ashwin has brought for us the analysis and the feedback that we received. So I want to bring to you the official methodology for this edition of the QS Sub-Saharan Africa rankings, and I'm going to go through each one of these weightings. So first of all, we begin with the two reputation indicators, which is the flagship metric that we use in all university rankings. And this is very important to connect with what my colleague said before, that of course we have many other publishers of university rankings, and different models, and all models are wrong, but some are useful. But what is very interesting about the QS rankings is that every single ranking that we publish, we make sure that the reputation scores are there, because we want to make sure that it doesn't matter if the universities are from Africa, from Latin America, or the global university rankings, or the sustainability rankings, subjects, and so on. We always keep the reputation element, because we want to make sure that any university in the world, they can be recognized. I'm going to go further later on the how these indicators not only they are calculated, but also how the data is collected. But for the reputation ones, are basically through surveys. So any scholar that participates in the survey can nominate any of the universities that exist out there. So by making sure reputation is also in the Sub-Saharan Africa rankings, we keep the consistency that we have seen throughout all the other university rankings. So each of them, we give a 20% weighting. Next, we also have sustainability and international research network, each with 15% of the weighting of the methodology. And here we have also gave such a great attention to these two indicators. This comes exactly from this process of obtaining feedback. So as my colleague Ashwin was mentioning, last year when we were in Zanzibar, we received many inputs from the scholars and leaders that were present, saying that we need to see how sustainable are the African universities, because many of them are being benchmarking models. They are being they have great initiatives, not only for the environmental sustainability side, which is usually the most visible part of sustainability, but especially on social impact. We have only for the sustainability indicator within this, there are 53 metrics which analyze the environmental sustainability side, social impact, and good governance. So sometimes universities they are not so strong with the environmental side of the sustainability, but they have such a great work with social impact, with making sure that the classrooms, they are places that welcome students and that produce long-lasting impacts in their lives, that we wanted to make sure this feedback was included in such a high weighting in the rankings. And the same goes for the International Research Network. We have observed the data from SciVal and from Scopus, and we have seen that over the time, the cross-border collaboration of African universities has really increased from 2019 until 2025. It has grown from 50% to almost 58% of the African universities that have cross-border collaboration. So we want to reflect that. We want to make sure that if these universities that are going to be evaluated here, they have such a great international research collaboration, they should be recognized by that. They should be visible for the fact that they do such cross-border collaboration. Next, we have two indicators that are related with the research and discovery lens. We have citations per paper and papers per faculty. Basically, the first one, citations per paper, is about the impact of the research. How visible is this research? How many citations those papers produced by your institutions they have available in the Scopus platform. And next, we have papers per faculty, which is about the volume of research, is about production. How many papers the departments within your institutions, they are publishing and being available online. Finally, we have faculty student ratio and web impact, both with 5%. Faculty student ratio, it's about the student experience. It's understanding how many faculty staff is available to support students. And web impact is about the presence that one institution has online, which goes beyond the English language. And this is very important. This is one indicator that we apply to the regional rankings, because we have a diversity of languages in Europe, in Latin America, in Africa. So we want to make sure that publications beyond the English language, which is the most used language in science, but it's not the only language. There are many languages in which we see publications. So web impact is covering to make sure institutions, scholars that publish in other languages than English, they're also going to be visible. And finally, staff with PhD. In this first edition, we are still piloting this indicator for this ranking. So as of right now, we have a 0% weighting, which means that those universities that have the score for this indicator, they can see where they are, they can see what is their performance, but it's not going to affect their position in the rankings, because as we're going to see further on in the slides, we received data about staff with PhD from so few universities. So we thought that for this first edition, it would be very unfair for the other universities that didn't have this data to be compared with those that actually had this data available. So now we are going to get into detail in each of these indicators. And this is where I really want to bring this discussion that we can have over the coffee break, that we can have over the Q&A session that we're going to have afterwards, is to, let me synchronize, how these indicators are calculated and how the data is collected. So as I mentioned before, the academic reputation indicator is measuring basically how institutions stand among academics. We want to find out, when we ask to scholars at the global level, but also at the national level of these countries, what is the institution that represents academic excellence for you? So basically, when we send out the survey, we ask for institutions to to nominate institutions at the international level, but also at the domestic level. So if we have scholars, contacts from institutions in Ghana, for instance, since we are having the event here, these scholars from Ghana, they will have to nominate someone from outside Ghana, but also nominate someone from Ghana. And this is how we make sure that all locations are represented, because if we just, as in this survey, an open survey online for anyone, it would be basically those people that are more interested or have more access to these features, they would answer the survey. But we make sure that your institutions are represented, your locations and your regions are represented by asking the universities, what are the contacts that you want to participate in the survey? And I'm going to talk about this in detail later. So these contacts from your network, from your list of scholars, they answer to the survey, and by default, they will be representing your location in the process. This indicator we have since 2004. So as I mentioned before, we keep the consistency of having academic reputation in all the QS university rankings. Next, we have citations per paper. As I mentioned, it's about the impact of the quality of the scientific work done by institutions on average by publication, and papers per faculty is measuring the volume of research, the amount of this production of work by institutional departments. What is very important here about those two indicators is that all the data we get from the Scopus platform. So we have a process of receiving the data from Scopus and analyzing this data and calculating this score. What is very important here is that many universities, they haven't created their credentials yet on Scopus. So many times we also have this challenge of universities that are very globally renowned for their academic quality, for their research quality, but they haven't updated their Scopus platform ID yet. So without this data, we cannot map, we cannot see which papers came from your university and went to the platform and we received the same data set. Next, we are going to see the second lens, which is going to be employability and outcomes. And in the case of this ranking, for the first edition, we are having the employer reputation indicator. So basically, it follows the same logic of the academic reputation indicator, but then here we are asking employers, those that are in position of hiring people at companies, at organizations, and etc., from which university you would hire from. Which institutions are producing those graduates that are ready for the job market? So again, those employers are going to be submitted by the list of contacts that the institutions send to us, and then we are going to send this survey at the global level, and those that participate in the survey, they're going to nominate. This is the institution that I believe is producing the best graduates for the job market. They are working on employability for their graduates, and also one institution from outside their home country to make sure globally and locally is represented. In the next slide, we're going to see learning experience. And basically, the learning experience lens is more focused on the student. How great is the experience of those students at your institution, and what is overall the facilities, the support that those students are receiving from the institution. In the case of the QS Sub-Saharan Africa rankings 2026, we have two indicators: faculty-student ratio, which is a calculation between the number of faculty staff that is available in the institution and the number of students. The logic here is very simple. The more students have faculty staff that are available for them, the better we understand that there's going to be more professors for research orientation, for career counseling, for making sure the classes, the students are in classes in which the professors are covering all the needs of the students. We also have professors that work only on teaching, only on research, or both of them on the administrative side. So we understand that having a good faculty to student ratio is a sign of the quality of the learning environment for the students. And next, we also have staff with PhD, which we receive the data, and those two, just to point out, this is very important, that those two indicators are among those indicators from which the data we receive from the institutions. And then we receive the data for faculty in general, where we see the number of faculty staff that you have in your institution. And alongside with this data set, you also inform how many of these faculty staff in your institution, they have a PhD or they have other qualifications. And again, here, this is an indication that if your institution is equipped with those professionals, with those academic faculty staff that have a PhD degree, this is another indication that not only the learning experience of these students is going to be improved, but also it points into a direction that this institution has more investment, more capabilities related to research, because usually those professors with PhD, or those that are still PhD candidates, they are more active in research compared to those that only have the master's level, for instance. The next lens is the global engagement one. Let me synchronize on that. Okay, so basically the global engagement lens is the lens that we have the most indicators for, looking at the big picture of the QS University rankings. But as I mentioned in the beginning, we don't use all the indicators at the same time in the same rankings. When we look at the regional rankings, we understand that not all countries of all regions in the world, they have the same assets related to international students. So we're really in this process of understanding what is the best scenario for Sub-Saharan African institutions, the same way we had years ago when we were thinking about the indicators for Latin America and the Caribbean, Asia, and Europe. So basically in this first edition, we have made sure that we have international research network, which is the ability of one institution to engage in research of collaboration at the global level, and networks of research collaboration, but not only to be part of this network, not only to enter there and to make sure your institution is part of this alliance of universities focused on research, but also the ability of the institution to keep engaged, to renew the participation, to be present in these forums where research collaboration is happening. So it's very important here that it's not only the number of papers that are made with authors from other institutions that are based in other countries, but also how you participate in these networks and how you keep engaged over the years in these networks. And finally, web impact, which comes from the Webometrics ranking web of world universities. This is a data set that is available online, is public, and we calculate we calculate the scores for this indicator based in this public data set that covers over 20,000 universities worldwide. So we believe it's quite comprehensive, and we get this data to understand which institutions they have this good visibility online. They have a good online footprint that goes beyond the borders of only publishing in English, or for instance only having the website in English for international students. Actually, here we see this online presence and how transparent is the communication of the institutions in their digital communication. So here we gather the data from the Cybermetrics lab that produces this list of over 20,000 universities worldwide based on their Webometrics, and we calculate based on their scores what is the score for the world university rankings, including the Sub-Saharan Africa one. And finally, the last lens is the sustainability lens, which my colleague already introduced this lens so interestingly. And to make a difference, we have the sustainability rankings and we have the sustainability indicators. At the core of the metrics, they're essentially the same, because when we open the data collection, we receive the data from the universities based on their environmental sustainability, social impact, and good governance metrics. And the same data we calculate for the Sub-Saharan Africa rankings and also for the sustainability rankings. So if you see the sustainability rankings, universities there are really projected themselves as excellent examples in the sustainability area. You're going to see in the Sub-Saharan Africa rankings these same universities succeeding as well, because it's essentially the same metric, although we also have a higher weighting for the African universities compared to other rankings. And I want to make a direct comparison with the World University rankings. And this is very important because it doesn't mean that the Sub-Saharan Africa rankings has a completely set of methodology indicators, but it means that we have adapted to this context of those local institutions, the weightings, and the kind of indicators that we apply here. So as you can see, the lenses are pretty much the same as I showed before for the World University rankings and here. But the difference is that for regional rankings, including this one, we have citations per paper and papers per faculty. In the World University rankings, we have citations per faculty, which is a blend of these two indicators. We have staff with PhD, which we don't use in the World University rankings, and web impact, which is also exclusive to the regional rankings. So when we compare to world, we understand there are those differences, but actually among the Sub-Saharan Africa rankings, Latin America, Asia, and Europe, we keep the consistency of this regional level analysis for all these regions that we evaluate. But we also have some indicators that are common to the world. So we have employer reputation, international research network, and sustainability, which have a higher weight here for the Sub-Saharan Africa rankings, and the lower weight for academic reputation and faculty-student ratio in this ranking compared to the world. And now that we have a more clear picture of the methodology and the metrics, how can universities participate? And many times we receive many queries from institutions that say, we were not invited to take part. We were not aware that these rankings were being published. But actually, there are many steps in this process of being ranked. One thing which is very important is the process of collecting data. And unfortunately, for many institutions, the data is not available, so we are not able to calculate those scores. And I'm going to talk about it in the next slide as well. But once we have the data from the institutions, there are a few steps that we need to make sure these institutions are eligible and also included. So basically, here we have the process of eligibility for the Sub-Saharan Africa rankings. It looks a lot, but I usually like to say that it's 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, and then you're going to remember it. Basically, your institution needs to offer full degree programs in both the undergraduate level and postgraduate level. Then further, plus 2. Also, these programs, they need to be in at least 2 faculty areas. And according to the official mapping of subjects, which Ashwin was also mentioning, the subject rankings, which is this official mapping that I'm talking about, we have 5 broad faculty areas, like the humanities, social sciences, engineering, technology, and so on. So you need to offer programs that are within those 2 broad faculty areas, which means at least one program related to the humanities, let's say, but also another program within the engineering and technology from 2 different faculty areas. This is the minimum. Plus 2. Now we also have the narrow subjects. So within those 5 broad faculty areas, we have way more narrow subjects. Within social sciences and management, of course, we have law, marketing, finances, and many others. So within this faculty area, you need to have minimum 2 narrow subjects, and the other faculty area, you also need to have 2. Now, you add here an extra plus 3. For each of these narrow subjects that you offer, you need to have at least 3 graduated classes in each of them. And finally, you need to deliver all, or at least part of your programs on campus. So you can offer online programs, but at least part of it needs to be in-person classes. And in the case of this ranking, of course, needs to be based in a location that is in either Eastern, Western, Middle, or Southern Africa within the United Nations GeoScheme. Finally, after you have been through all this process and you are eligible, you still need to be included. So in order for you to be included, you need to be nominated in the QS Academic Reputation Survey. It means that if at least one scholar in the world or in your country has nominated you for the Academic Reputation Survey, you check these inclusion criteria. But there is another one as well, which is to have at least 50 papers that are indexed and published by Scopus over a 5-year period. Let me just check the time. Okay, I'm still within the schedule. And finally, we have the data submission process, which is the final part of my presentation, because we believe it's very important to have this collaboration with the institutions. First of all, it's very important to make sure that all institutions, they are able to submit their data. There are no restrictions. Any institution can go to our platform, to our digital platform, which I'm going to present in another slide, and you can submit the data for the rankings. Once you enter in the platform, you're going to have the credentials for your institutions, which you can obtain with our team. And there you're going to be able to submit data for all the rankings projects that we have been talking about it today. You can submit through this platform, and what is very important here to differentiate, because we are talking about the African continent, which is very extensive, and we have institutions that are within the Southern Hemisphere, not only time zone, but the academic year as well. And we also have other institutions more in the Northern Hemisphere that follow the different academic calendar year. So what we mention here is that usually for those institutions that are in the Southern Hemisphere, the academic year is what they consider from January to December. This is the period where the data should come from. And for those institutions in the Northern Hemisphere, is the period which is around the August to July of the next year. This is, of course, for instance, if you're now submitting data for the 2027 ranking cycle, as Ashley mentioned, that we're going to receive data with experienced period of deadline, is related to those previous academic years. So from January to December of 2025, but also from August to July that ends in 2025 for those in the Northern Hemisphere. Finally, what is the kind of data that you can submit? And this is very important, because we have many institutions that they do submit data for QS, but they don't submit for all the fields. And many times we are missing key fields that are important for creating those calculation of the scores. So in the next slide, we have students and faculty. As we saw, now that you are already very familiar with the methodology of this ranking, you must remember those indicators that involve students and the academic staff. They come from here. When you open the QS Hub platform, you're going to see a list of indicators that you need to fill in. And one of them is basically the total number of students, the total number of international students, the total number of staff, the total number of international staff. How many of these staff, they have a PhD? How many of them are full-time? How many of them are part-time? And there are actually specific concepts for each of these things that we ask for. So if you are wondering what is considered an international student, in the platform it's saying. If you're wondering what is considered a full-time staff or part-time staff, we also have this in the platform. And of course, whenever you need, we have a whole team of support analysts that you can reach out to, and they can follow case by case of the data submission for each of the institutions. Here in this section, we also capture employment statistics for those indicators that involve employment. Programs and fees. Here we are also interested in the programs that are offered by your institution, full-time programs, part-time programs, and also the fees that are charged in the case of those programs that have any fees. And of course, the number of these programs offered in relation to the statistics. So what is the completion rate? What is the retention rate? What is the continuation rate? And also, of course, information on those courses that are still offered by your institution, but they don't offer a degree. All of this data is also collected by us. Next, sustainability. We have presented this, we have covered very much this ranking and this set of indicators today, but we have a separate within the QS Hub platform, we have a separate area only for sustainability data. So you submit the ones that are for the World University rankings, but for sustainability is a separate category where you can even download the template and start filling in the data even before the period of submitting this data. And here, as I mentioned before, we calculate 53 metrics. For each of the metrics, there are different data sets that we collect. Covering all the parts of the institution related to, again, environmental sustainability, social impact, and good governance. And finally, academic and employer contacts, which is the heart of the reputation indicators. Basically, each institution has the right to send 400 academic contacts plus 400 employer contacts. And many times we see institutions that send 400 contacts, but in total 200 and 200 each. But actually you can send in total 800 contacts for each year when we are collecting data. And this is very important. Of course, we are aware of the challenge that it's not easy to keep a database of 400 active academic and 400 active employer contacts that you can submit that they want to participate in the survey. We know that this is a challenge for many institutions, not only in terms of having these networks active, but also to administrate this database, because some of them, they want to opt out, they don't want to be in the list anymore, and you need to keep constantly updating. But you have the chance to submit each year a total of 800 contacts, and these contacts, they, after a process of validation, because sometimes, unfortunately, we received fake email addresses or email addresses that are invalid or that don't exist anymore. So also the quality of this contact needs to be up to date, because if you submit 400 but 100 of them are fake, not provided by you but provided by your contact, you're going to lose 100 spots that could be used in the surveys. So we validate those contacts, we make sure they exist, and then after a process of validation in our system, we have those contacts receiving the surveys. They receive the surveys, and we actually send 3 times the notification for those contacts inviting for the survey. Of course, it's not mandatory. You provide the data and we invite them, and if they wanted to participate in the survey, they can nominate domestic and international institutions for the academic reputation and for the employer reputation. And to close my presentation, and actually ahead of time, I'm very happy for that, because usually Brazilians, they keep talking and keep talking. But in the last part of the presentation is what my colleague Ashwin presented before. And we understand that these rankings is the inaugural edition. As I mentioned before, this means 2 things. We want to see more editions in the future with more institutions, and it means these rankings is not set in stone. We want to give your institutions and many others that are watching online or that will hear of these conversations that we have today, the opportunity to participate in the process. So we invite you to submit data. If you haven't submitted yet, or if you have submitted partially, you can still submit the other data fields, which are available in the QS Hub platform. Ashwin mentioned that we made efforts, we made conversations, we had this understanding that as this is a first edition of the ranking, we want to make sure we have a greater coverage. So for the next edition of the QS Sub-Saharan Africa Rankings 2027, the data deadline has been extended only for institutions of the region. So for all the other regions of the world, the deadline has been closed. for all the indicators that compose the World University Rankings. But for this region, we have extended until the 15th of April. And in this process, you can come to us, you can get in touch with our support team, and we have many specialists that work in each of the cases of the institutions to demonstrate what kind of data you can submit. Also, many data points, they require an evidence, they require a document, they require a proof that the data is correct. And there are all sorts of questions about the documents, the evidence, if the data is correct or not. And we are here to auxiliate during this process to make sure when your data is submitted and is validated, is going to be correctly analyzed for the not only for the Sub-Saharan Africa rankings, but for all the other rankings in which institutions from this region can participate, as we mentioned before. So thank you so much for the opportunity and the attention, and we are open for you for any questions and any comments. To start a QA now? Sure, absolutely.
Very well. We can do some Q&As. You can put your hand up and then I'll hand you the microphone. Yes. Yes, sir.
Good morning. I'm Patrick Ewa from Ashesi University. I have a couple of questions. The first one has to do with employability. I mean, that's one of the three key things that QS is about from your mission statement. But when you talked about student experience or student outcomes, you talked about completion rates. You didn't talk about percentages of people who are employed within a particular time frame. And I think that's important data for us to be tracking. Beyond what the employers say, what actually happens at universities. So if a university has great research and 90% of their graduates can't find a job for 5 years, and that university ranks very high, is that okay in our context? And the second thing, the question I had about the weightings, it seems that research is very heavily weighted because it's the primary thing that you're measuring on the reputational score, but it is also embedded in webometrics, which you're including. And I'm just wondering, how do you ensure that you're not double counting on research? And how do you make sure that the weightings are really student-centered? Because it's not clear to me that just student-faculty ratios are sufficient to measure student-centeredness.
Thank you. All right. Did I see your hand, sir? All right.
I think you want to respond first.
I think we can complement each other. First of all, thank you so much for the questions. Related to employability, if I understood correctly, you're comparing how one institution could have this 90% of graduates that are not in the job market and still rank high. I didn't cover much of the employment statistics data that we collect here. But in that one of these last slides, the first box that said the faculty and student data, it also includes the employment statistics. So we ask universities, and you can also enter in our platform and submit data and see all the data points that we require. But some of them include the percentage of students that entered in the job market, and this is broken down by periods. So as you mentioned, we also calculate the students that have been employed in the last years, and at the same time, we also complement this data with national statistics data where available to make sure that we see a consistency between the data that's submitted by the institutions and what is being reported by the ministries of labor or the government in general in terms of employability. And sometimes we observe those trends that should not be correct. As you mentioned, is it correct if an institution with 90% of students not in the job market ranking high? This is what we keep double checking the process. Because if the institution submits the data saying they are having all the graduates in the job market within 1 month they receive the diploma, we look at the national statistics, and that at the national level, all institutions are not producing those graduates ready to job market. We ask again. We verify with the institution. We make sure that there are no anomalies in the process. Of course, does it happen sometimes? Unfortunately, yes, because the pool of data includes billions and billions of data points, and many times we see inconsistencies between not inconsistency, sorry, but we receive data points that are old, that are not updated. So perhaps one institution had a high level of employment 5 years ago. They repeated this data, and the national statistics figures, they are also from 5 years ago. So in the reality, they are not going so well. But if both data points are from 5 years ago, we cannot make sure that is going to be up to date without this relevant data. So we have a whole team that is constantly double checking the data for all the metrics, all the indicators, including those that we are not using the rankings as of right now. But it's this is why we need the collaboration of the institutions to submit the accurate data, because sometimes we don't have the data from the institution, sometimes we don't have from statistics, sometimes we don't have both, and the more we have data, the more we can give it back in the form of the rankings results. The second part about the research, to make sure that Weibo metrics is not double counting. Actually, this is a great question, because many times the Weibo metrics is seen as a research related indicator, but actually is an indicator within the global engagement lens. So we are not counting the number of papers that are produced by faculty. We are not counting the number of citations, which are those research data are from the Scopus platform, is their database. But from this Webometrics one, we look at those top cited researches that are visible online. This is why I mentioned that it goes beyond the English language, because if in that country, in that region, there is one researcher publishing in one language, which is not available in Scopus, but is still among in the list of the top cited researchers, according to these cybermetric labs, is going to add to the international visibility side of the ranking, not to the research part of the ranking. And also top cited researchers, top cited papers, and web content's impact. So how much the contents that are produced by that institution, again, regardless of language, is receiving access, is receiving views, is being cited online, which is not related to research, but is related to global visibility. I don't know if Ashwin wants to make any other intervention.
So just to add on here, a great question, Patrick, as well. I think we've had some engagement with you at the previous forum. We are looking, and this is the inaugural edition, so haven't, I think we can't include everything without the participation of institutions. We are looking at employment rates in the methodology for the world ranking. So we have just introduced that a few, I think 2 years ago, and it's going very well. We are looking at employment outcomes. That means not just not employment rate, but where is the alumni currently at. So it's in a world, and I think it will be time when we start getting more data. We are collecting the data, as Wesley mentioned, for the region as well. So when we start opening up that and we have enough data for the region on employability, we probably will include that in the Sub-Saharan African ranking as well. With the research part, I think the webometrics part, which we have in, does cover the Schimago data, which is the top researchers who have a certain number of citations. We do that, but we are not double counting papers because the Google Scholar data is excluded from our calculation from there. And we have tried to move away from the traditional citations per faculty in the world into the papers in here. So we've kept that number relatively small. And of course, the academic reputation is where it would cover the academic reputation part, but the employer reputation for now at least is a proxy for employability. It's not perfect, but it is a proxy at least. And I think it's feedback like this we'll take back to our teams and our advisory board. There are 40 members, global university leaders in the advisory board, and we would like you all as well, if you all have interest, to join the advisory board, the rankings advisory board. We would like to have some more African participation as well in the advisory board as well, so we can get the voice heard at that level as well. Yes, is that mic?
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Mohammed Awal Ibrahim from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, Nigeria. I have three very simple questions. The first one has to do with the methodology for the Sub-Saharan Africa ranking of the QS. I really appreciated the different meetings that you had for you to eventually come up with the methodology. But I think I've observed largely that most of the metrics are simply recalibration of the data that has been collected for the World University ranking without much input of some uniqueness of the African universities. For instance, I think the African universities interact a lot and they are affected by their respective communities. I think that is one way that we can inject the Africanness in the Sub-Saharan Africa ranking. I think that is something that we should consider in that. Also issues like also even promoting African indigenous knowledge systems by the African universities are also issues that I think should be incorporated such that we can see that African touch in the QS African, Sub-Saharan African rank, and then so many other variables that are perhaps very unique to the African context, I think will go a long way in improving, in making it real African for that's for the QS Sub-Saharan African ranking. So that is one of the issue I want to call our attention to. Then the other one is the issue of the World University ranking versus the SSA ranking. I've observed that a number of universities were not ranked in the World University ranking, and eventually they pop up in the Sub-Saharan Africa ranking. And I can see that the data that were collected were around the same thing and from the same platform. So I just wanted to find out how some of them came up and eventually successfully come on board and did quite very well. This is important so that we can also perhaps relate to other universities. This is, even if you are not ranked in the world university ranking, you also have that chance and the opportunity to also be ranked in the Sub-Saharan Africa ranking. This is important. We want to know how they actually pop up in this one. And the last issue is I'm very happy with the fact that you raised something that is quite important, the administration of the database for the academic and employer reputation survey is within the African context, and I want to believe for most of us, is a very tedious task. I'm glad you actually acknowledge that, very tedious task. So I want to ask a simple question. Is there no penalty for a university if it doesn't submit that data? Or is there a penalty or is there no penalty? Because the administration is quite complicated and tedious. And also I can sense that even from European universities, I've received a number of emails from some of them trying to include me as part of their decision. So I think it's now becoming not necessarily African issue, but perhaps a global issue. So I want to know whether there is penalty for that. Thank you so much.
There are three questions. I will answer the first one and partially the third one. I'll give Wesley second one. Second, I'll pass it to Wesley. Exactly. So again, this is the inaugural edition. We did send out invitations out to universities to submit data. We had consultation, and there is a diverse opinion on what should be included, right? And what might be relevant for you in Nigeria might perhaps not be relevant in South Africa. What might be relevant in South Africa might not be relevant in Ghana. So we need to start that consultation process. So what I would suggest is for the next Africa Forum, which we have in Addis Ababa, let us maybe create a smaller group of individuals who will discuss this with our team, and let's start working on the roadmap for how do we include this in the future. And I would really like the Association of African Universities to take the lead in this, because any indicator we would like to include has to be relevant. And I know they are very similar to the world, but we are only comparing within the Sub-Saharan African region, right? And of course, the third question which you said, because I want to make it quick, I need to get you to coffee as well. There is no penalty at the moment for not submitting the academic or employer reputation list, because it's completely optional. Why is it optional? Because in the current mechanism, all the contacts we have in the QS database get to nominate any institution they would like to nominate. So for example, if you receive a survey and you say you're an academic in Nigeria, the first question for you is, in Nigeria and in your subject area, which of the 10 or up to 10 institutions you believe produce exceptional research or have, in your opinion, are the best? And then you can nominate up to 30 across the world, depending on which regions you pick. So if you say you're an expert in Asia, then in Asia you can nominate up to 30. Or if you say you're an expert in the whole world, which perhaps we all think we are, you can nominate up to 30 in the whole world, right? So in this case, even if you are a university which is not submitting data, you can still be ranked based on the public data we have. So on the second point, I'll give it to Wesley to quickly answer.
Thank you so much, Ashwin. Very quickly, to make sure we're on time for the coffee break. This is a very great question. The difference between those universities that are in world, but and that are in Sub-Saharan Africa. We have in World University Rankings, the 2026 edition, only 19 universities from Sub-Saharan Africa, representing only 6 countries. Ashwin showed the main statistics in the introduction of the speak, that now we have 69 from Sub-Saharan Africa, from which 34 has never been before in a QS university ranking. So the main difference is not only because of the methodology, there are indicators present there and here that are the same, or also because of the weighting. If you are performing really well in one indicator that here has a higher weighting, but there has a low rating, your score is going to be affected by that. But also, in more importantly, it's about the eligibility inclusion criteria that for world has even higher stakes. So you need to be, for instance, I don't remember now exactly the numbers, but for world, you need to be among the top 200 in one indicator, in the top 200 in another indicator, to make sure you enter the threshold. Another important criteria for world is to be ranked in a regional ranking. Until now, we didn't have the Sub-Saharan Africa rankings to be this preparatory stage for world. So African universities, when they were being evaluated for the World University Rankings, they were being compared to everyone all at the same time. While the other regions, they had the Europe Regional Rankings to enter first there, to meet this criteria, and then be able to evaluate for World. And of course, the regional rankings, they have more institutions from that region than in the world. So increase the possibility of their participation. Now that we have a Sub-Saharan Africa rankings covering this region, we have 69 institutions, not 19, that have the initial, the first step towards world. They are already in the roadmap. Does it mean that all the 69 ranked universities, they are automatically in world? No. But now there are 34 new institutions. They also can enter in this roadmap, and they can be evaluated in world attending these criteria that before didn't exist. And perhaps it was one of the reasons that we didn't see so many institutions from this region, because they didn't have the regional stage to submit data, to have lower thresholds, to improve the performance year on year, and then make sure they have the same performance for the global level. I think that's it. Yes, we continue later. Yes.
Would you? All right. Okay. Distinguished guests, a round of applause to Wesley Da Silva Sequeira. It's been an immense session, giving us a review. I know there are questions. I will have to proceed to coffee break. So this moment, let us all be ushered for coffee break, and we'll be back by 11:40. Sorry, 12:15. 11:15. Sorry. So we can be back to resume the session. So by 11:45, we should be back. Yeah, 30 minutes. Sure, 30 minutes. We're back. So it'll be very short. Let's go and have our coffee break and come back. Thank you very much. Ushers, please let's be available and lead our guests to the coffee center. So we can depart. Yes, time for break. So coffee break is on. Thank you very much. Catch you later after the break.
The 1960s was not only a watershed, but also a vital historical landmark in Africa's struggle and search for modern identity. It was a period that most colonial territories achieved or were about to achieve political independence, and also the beginning of the so-called development decade, when African countries immediately found themselves drawn into the vortex of international conferences of varying motivation, rationality, and utility, ostensibly designed not only to analyze but also to prescribe solutions to their problems. Education naturally received high priority, not only as a means by which centuries of ignorance was to be wiped out, but also the means to train and develop the skills and high-level manpower to replace the erstwhile colonial official, as well as staff the new and expanded political, administrative, social, and economic institutions. In December 1960, the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa organized a conference in Khartoum, Sudan, in which, among other things, inter-African cooperation in the development of higher education was discussed. The ministers of education in newly independent African countries again met under the auspices of the UN Economic Commission for Africa in Addis Ababa in May 1961 to discuss the importance of education to economic development. During the meeting, a committee of 6 African states was asked to prepare a synthesis of educational goals, targets, and qualitative attainment during the next 25 years, decided by the African states. This became known as the 20-year Addis Ababa Plan. This meeting was followed in September 1962 by a meeting of a more specialized conference on the development of higher education in Africa, organized by the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, in Tananarive, Madagascar. Heads of African institutions of higher studies taking part decided to follow this by a private meeting outside the main framework of the conference, which they did, and decided to meet at Khartoum in Sudan to consider the practical means of developing inter-university cooperation in Africa and the measures necessary for setting up an organization which would give effect to the cooperation. The first meeting of heads of African universities, held at the University of Khartoum on 16 to 19 September 1963, decided that the creation of an Association of African Universities was desirable. An interim committee was appointed and charged with 1. Drafting of a constitution for the proposed association, and 2. Convening a conference to bring the association into being under the constitution. The preparations involved 3 meetings of the interim committee. 1 meeting at Haile Selassie I University in Ethiopia on 23 to 25 July 1964, and 2 meetings at the University of Khartoum on 3rd to 4th April 1965 and on 22nd to 23rd February 1967, in addition to the informal discussion, which included frequent meetings between the chairman of the interim committee, Dr. Mohamed El Fassi, the executive vice chairman, Dr. E.N. Dafala, and other members of the committee, namely Dr. Davison Nicole, Vice Chairman, Dr. R.F. Bafor, Sir Bernard Dibanson, Dr. C. Frank, Dr. S.A. Hussain, Dr. Kasawood Mariam, Dr. M. Mercy Ahmed, Dr. E. Njoku, and Dr. R. Weeks. Great help was rendered by Mr. D. Aiken, Executive Secretary of the International Association of Universities. Unforeseen circumstances twice delayed the holding of the founding conference, which was first arranged on invitation by the Nigerian universities at Ahmadu Bello University in Nigeria from 20 to 22 January 1966. Disruption of communications with Nigeria prevented almost all participants from reaching Zaria, and the conference was postponed. This setback was followed by a series of informal consultations and enquiries which paved the way for finally accepting an invitation by the universities of the United Arab Republic, now Egypt, to hold the conference in Alexandria, in Egypt, on 12 to 14 September 1967. But due to the aftermath of the Arab-Israeli War, the timing proved not suitable. Finally, the committee accepted an invitation by His Excellency Dr. M. El Fazi to hold a conference at Mohammed V University at Rabat, Morocco on 9 to 13 November 1967, and by the excellent facilities extended by His Excellency King Hassan II of Morocco. The founding conference was held in Rabat, and the Association of African Universities was formally inaugurated on November 12, 1967. It was attended by representatives of 34 universities out of 46 institutions of higher learning in Africa that qualified for the membership. A year after its formation, the AAU became an affiliated member of UNESCO and an associate member of the International Association of Universities. In 1969, the AAU applied for Category A observer status at meetings of the OAU, which was granted. And in 1994, to coincide with the inaugural anniversary of the AAU, the then Organization of African Unity, now African Union, declared 12 November of every year as African Universities Day in pursuant to Resolution CM/Res.1534 passed by the OAU Council of Ministers in June of that year. The African University Day has been observed and celebrated by AAU member institutions since then. The decision of the permanent location of the association's headquarters from its temporary office in Sudan was taken to the 6th meeting of the Executive Board at the University of Lagos, Nigeria, in June 1970. The author from Ghana was chosen upon presentation by the then Vice-Chancellor of the University of Ghana, Professor A. Kwapon, of a formal letter from the government of Ghana indicating the facilities and immunities that would be accorded the association. In terms of numbers, the AAU has grown in membership to a current 450 plus universities. During the association's 8th General Conference in Accra in January 1993, the bylaws were changed to allow associate membership. The International Center of Insect Physiology and Ecology in Kenya became the first associate member. At the 12th General Conference in Abuja in May 2009, the Nomenclature Executive Board was changed to Governing Board, and the Executive Committee, comprising the President and the 3 Vice Presidents, was established, with the Secretary General serving as a secretary to both the Executive Committee and the Governing Board. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this has been a brief history of the apex higher education body on the continent. This is AAU, the voice of higher education in Africa.
fraternizing and also networking. That is the aim of the moment, to get to know each other and grow together.
I will just. Is everybody here?
No, some people are all there.
Maybe you get
For a while.
everybody.
Yeah, sure. So I'd like to draw the attention of other guests at the lobby to please join us as we commence the second part of this session. So all distinguished guests in the lobby, please join us so we proceed. Trust everybody's back. Okay, so I'm making this call to all distinguished guests who are not with us here to kindly join us. It is time for us to proceed. So very big welcome to us all as we get ready to proceed to the second section for today's event. Let's give some few minutes for us to get seated. Few minutes to get seated. Few minutes. Yeah. Splendid. Splendid. Now, in commencing the second part, I would invite. Okay, so then a minute for us all to all get seated. It's very important to have everybody in the house because what is about to happen is very important. And we all should be here to experience it. So if you look at your program outline, you realize that this second session is titled Highlights of the Results from QS Sub-Saharan Africa University Rankings 2026 edition. And before Dr. Ashwin would take the microphone to take us in to appreciate the information and insight in there, it is important to realize that everybody is in the house. So every distinguished guest is inside. And thank you very much for you, Eli. Appreciate the support. All right. Then I will hand the microphone to Dr. Ashwin Fernandez to help us with the insight. Put your hands together for him, please.
Okay. Thank you very much, and welcome back from the coffee break. So I thought before we get into insights and we have some presentation, I want to share with you about our impact, QS's impact in Africa. QS has a charity arm called QS Impact Charity, which works across the African region in Asia to support our young people. We are supporting them through sustainability projects, and we have several skill challenges. We have councils of young people who are working towards change in their university, in their schools, in their community. And we have actually presence of our QS Impact team in Africa. So I should have done the introduction earlier, but probably skipped my mind. But let me introduce a young change maker in Ghana, that too in Ghana, who's working for QS Impact and supporting our community work in Africa, Pan-Africa, and across the world. Let me introduce Confidence. Confidence is our community manager for the Impact Charity. And he just wants to talk to you about the work we do at the charity and how do we engage with youth, and perhaps how do we engage in the future with your students, engaging them and bringing them into the charity to support the SDGs and to support the mission of sustainability in our community. So a round of applause to Confidence. Confidence, we would like you to please tell us about the charity.
Sorry, great. And yeah.
Right. Respectfully, my name is Confidence, as Ashwin said. Ashwin forget to mention that he's also on the board of QX Impact. And then in London, December, Ashwin brought about 3 students from India to just come to the youth summit we have. In 2 minutes, we are looking at QS Impact and then some of the programs that we run that's it's of essence and useful to university community is what we call the Skills Challenge. What is it? We realize young people need skills before they use the university and then they need to become more employable. And therefore, as a charity, we run a program like Skills Challenge. In 2025, we had about 200 teams, which a team is made up of a minimum of 3 people from over 45 countries. And then we have a cash prize of £2,000 to these students. Now, let me give you a graphical presentation in your mind. Think of students in Colombia in a university who wants to build a game for good and it's based on the SDGs. They realize that there is a lot of inequality among the people, for example, male and female, and therefore they build a game where this game will solve that challenge within the university, and then it will be submitted to the global challenge. Now, here, this year, 2026, we are between the dates of 16 to 29th March, we are running this skills challenge, and it's free of charge to all universities. We want all universities to be part where the students get to learn free skills. It's been powered or sponsored by Zoom, and then we have trainers from Unity, and then Arizona State University. It's interesting to bring your students to be part of competitions because they get to interact with global students worldwide, and it doesn't end there. In December, we have what we call the Youth Summit. And then Youth Summit is where all university students around the world come together. So actually in December in London, we had more than 150 students from over 30 countries coming to ideate on different subject matter. The one was at Imperial College London, where the students developed AI for good challenges. And then the two was at the Reimagine, where students support these programs. It may sound very vague, but then the essence is that students get to learn free skills, they develop themselves, and that is why Ashwin and then the board like Nanzio and everyone is part of this. And therefore, we invite every university here. I'm happy to share to you through the Skills Challenge brochure for you to read more about it. So I'll come around, and then if you're interested, I can pick your email so that your students can be part of this. Ashwin, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so very much. It's a small deviation from what we were doing, because I thought, we are telling you of our rankings, but I also have to tell you the impact we have in the region goes beyond the rankings. We are supporting our young people as well. So let's get into the presentation. We'll try to get to the award ceremony very quick, but we have another small surprise in between the insights and the award ceremony, which I will share with you as we move to the next part of the session. So we can park the Q&A slightly aside, and we can take it after we do the short insights presentation, which Wesley and myself will do it. So I will start first and I'll ask Wesley to join. So again, as a reminder for those who were asking the questions on how do we get our data submitted, what do we need to do, we will share all these slides with you later. So if you aren't able to take a photograph, you can refer to these slides later, but your main point of contact would be the rankings@qs.com email. And in terms of our website, it is support.qs.com. We'll share this with you after this, okay? Right, so let's go to the results highlight very quickly. Now, when we do rankings in the world, we of course see certain regions even within Africa doing well. But what was really special of this edition is that we've seen a diverse range of universities from various countries and various locations and various cities being represented in the rankings. So the top 20, particularly, we had 6 countries represented. All right. And the most represented locations, of course, South Africa is there. And even in a world ranking, we have South Africa doing well. But we had Nigeria and Ethiopia as well as one of the largest representation. And then the highest average score across at least minimum 3 indicators is, of course, South Africa and Uganda. Along with Eastern Africa, seems to have the most ranked institutions and new entrants, that means which were not ranked before. These are just insights for you because When we do a Sub-Saharan African ranking, we generally probably focus on seeing those which are focused on research. And I know Patrick made a point of research, but despite whatever we have right now, we've had a larger representation of countries and locations. The strongest indicator, now this is where I think it would be a great for you all as well to know, is the citations per paper. So we are not focusing on what we are producing, but the impact of those papers. And the papers per faculty seems to be the weakest indicator. Okay, so we can of course take these results and contextualize it on what could be the challenges there, but there's definitely some good things to take from this. Now, this is the graphical representation of how many countries, how many institutions. We start with South Africa, 14, 11 from Nigeria, then Ethiopia, 8, Ghana, 7. Do we have any South African universities with us today? Do we? South African, okay. So we do have the largest representation. Nigeria, we have 11. How many from Nigeria are here today? Great. So I think we have a large representation of them also in the room today. So that's great. Ethiopia and Ghana. Do we have our host nation here? University of Ghana. Okay, good, great. So when we get to the award ceremony, I'll probably get to know you a little bit more. All right. So, and then we have several other countries. Now, some of them we just have one institution each. But this is just a starting point, and that's what I want you to take with you back today. Spread this word in your country, in your city, so that we can also have more data for institutions in the next cycle. So Kenya, we'll just look at some of the top 5. So just for context here, we have the University of Nairobi, which is ranked 7, Kenyatta 25, Moi 32, Jomo Kenyatta 33, and Egerton 41. So we just wanted to focus on some of the nations which did well. Of course, Kenya is one of them, with at least 5 ranked institutions in this focus there. Ghana, because we are in a host city, of course, ranked 8th is University of Ghana. Then 14, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Then University of Cape Coast, Kumasi Technical, and SSA University. Okay. Then Ethiopia, again, we have only taken the top 5 because some of them have one institution each, so we didn't cover that here, but the results are available online. Addis Ababa University, Mekelle University, Hawassa, Gondar, and Arsi. Okay. And further in Nigeria, because we have a lot of Nigerian presence as well, we have University of Ibadan, which is top ranked, University of Lagos, University of Nigeria, Suka, Covenant University, and Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. Okay, so that's Nigeria. Then South Africa, we have the top ranked in the region, which is University of Cape Town, followed by University of Johannesburg, University of Witwatersrand, Stellenbosch, and University of Pretoria. Okay. Now, this is what I thought would be really interesting for you as well. We just don't have the dots in South Africa. We have the dots all over Africa. There are some regions which still we need to work on, but you can see that we are covering a large region here with several institutions across not just countries, but also cities as well. Okay. So when we looked at the highest ranked institutions by location, so we thought we'll just give you a bit of twist on the location because we looked at the city here. So there are several cities also being represented, and we've seen, it is Burkina Faso or it is Malawi. The message from this insights presentation is we just didn't want to show you the top 5, and of course, we don't have. We do have a large representation beyond the top 5 and top 10, which are of course South Africa, but we are seeing many more regions covered in this edition, and we hope next year we can of course double and triple these numbers with your support. And again, we just wanted to share some of the top ones in there as well for you. And with that, what I want to do is ask Wesley to do a little bit more deep dive into the regions. And we've of course seen South Africa do very well across all indicators. Now, this is kind of a post results understanding of which country did how well. So Wesley, if I could ask you to take over here, and then I'll come back in a short while.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ashwin. To continue this presentation with the highlights of the results, can we have the... Yes. So here we have a heat map of the average scores of those indicators that we were discussing before. And they are organized by the lenses. So the first three, research and discovery, then we have employability, the ones with student experience, global engagement, and finally sustainability. When we look at this, it's very interesting because it indicates us what are the areas that clearly there are certain countries, because this is the aggregated average score for all the institutions in that country. Certain countries, they take the lead. Certain countries, they are isolated. But also at the regional level, we see trends that are common across different locations, and if not to all of them. So when Ashwin was mentioning before the top, the highest average indicator score and the lowest average indicator score, which is the average of all these averages. And as he mentioned, papers per faculty is the lowest average indicator score. It doesn't mean all the countries or all the institutions, they have a weak score in this one. But it means that when we take a zoom out at the institutions, and again, we take a zoom out of the countries and we see the region as a whole, we see a trend that the production of papers, the productivity of research is typically, not a rule, but typically lower for those institutions that were ranked in the region. Why, when we look at citations per paper, which is the highest one, again, not all of them, they have great scores there, but the trend, the big picture is that the citations, the visibility, the impact of this research that has been produced is quite high. And we can see other areas as well, such as staff with PhD, which I think it's a very interesting message that brings here. The first message is how scarce was the data for this one, and this is the main reason why we decided to keep a zero weighting for this first edition. We only have data for 4 countries for this indicator, representing a total of 19 institutions across these 4 countries. So we don't know yet what is the picture for all the other countries. But the current picture of only these 4, of only these 19 institutions, is that there is a great potential there. The average scores are actually really good. There is a great potential that actually African institutions, they have a high quality offer of academic staff for their students. But we don't know the rest. We don't know what is the picture for the other countries. We don't know yet if it's going to confirm a trend that across African countries and institutions, they're all collectively good, or at least typically they are doing well, or if actually those are the strong ones and the rest, they vary between strong and weak scores. So this is the kind of analysis that we want to take from these rankings. Of course, we only have 69 ranked institutions, but it's the first snapshot that we can get out of it. The more we have institutions submitting data with data available, and for us to be able to evaluate here, the more we have a more clear picture. Probably with more institutions from these countries and from the countries that are not yet participating in this ranking, this could change. We could discover other realities. But the main message here is this, for us to take a look, also giving context to this, because as Ashwin presented before, there are many countries with only one ranked institution. So when you see here the average score for those respective countries is the average score of the institution itself. So we need to see what is the picture for those countries with more institutions coming aboard, while for the others to have a balanced representation. But this is what we want to bring to you today. And we also see a very good trend with International Research Network. It's not the strongest average score in the overall picture, but you also see a clear, a positive trend, and perhaps with more institutions, more countries, we can confirm that the research collaboration cross borders in Africa, it's indeed very strong. So continuing with the next slide, I'm going to take a look at the indicators. So for all the indicators that we have discussed today, I'm going to mention what is the highest average score for the country, what is the institution that is the number one in the, for this indicator, among some other trends. The main message for this part, besides the main numbers that we really love to bring to you, is that in many cases, there is clearly a country that is performing really well in one indicator. But in other cases, there is a country that collectively their ranked institutions are performing really well, but at the isolated level, there is one institution from another country that is stronger. So let's take a look, beginning with the research and discovery indicators. Okay, so academic reputation. We see Uganda with the highest average indicator score. But when we look at the individual level, we see University of Cape Town being the number one institution for this indicator. The average indicator score here is 20.4. And when we look at the whole ranking, we see that at least 40% of institutions, they have a minimum score of 30. This is also very interesting because when you take the average indicator score, you have one angle. But when you see the number of institutions that has passed a certain threshold that we consider that at least it's a good result, the number is different. So we also think here, we need to think how the low scores of certain institutions or for certain locations, they can also impact the big picture for the region as well. Citations per paper, Zambia has the highest average indicator score in this indicator, and Copperbelt University from the same location is also the highest ranked institution. What is the message here? The same country collectively and individually is leading in this indicator. The average indicator score is 39, so again, is the strongest score in the region. Other locations, other institutions, they're also doing really well here. What are they doing that is being so successful? What is the strategy being employed by the researchers from these institutions? The non-ranked institutions, what can they learn from it? And those institutions, the few ones that had a low score in this one, what they can learn from the best practices. This is the conversation that we want to open. And 71% of the institutions, they have a score of 30 or more. So not only the average score is high, but also the majority of the institutions, they performed so well. Next, we have papers per faculty. In this case, we have South Africa with the highest average indicator score and the Stellenbosch University as the highest ranked institution. The lowest average score, as we mentioned before, 18.5, combining all the institutions of the region in the rankings. But when we look at the institutions with a score of 30 or more, we see at least around 35% that has reached this level. Next, we go to employer reputation. So South Africa and University of Cape Town repeat this trend of leadership. Is the country and the individual institution they are performing so well here. The average indicator score of 21.3, and at least 42% of the institutions, they have a score of minimum 30. We can go next to faculty-student ratio. So here we have another scenario where the collective performance and the individual performance are not from the same location. Ethiopia with the highest average indicator score, and University of Namibia being the number one institution for this indicator. The average indicator score is almost 29, and we have 45% of the institutions with a score of 30 and more, or more. The next one is staff with PhD. So remember here, we only had 19 institutions from 4 countries. So although we give you this picture, it's with a very, very small sample. Nigeria and Covenant University, the same location, they are taking the lead here. The average indicator score is very high, it's 64.6. If this was a statistic that would bring to you with all the countries, that would be the highest average indicator score. But we cannot tell you that yet because of the lack of data. And 80% of those 90 institutions, they have a score of minimum 30. We have International Research Network, South Africa, and another university now from the same country. They are taking the lead. The average indicator score is also very high, 35.8, is very close to the citations per paper average indicator score. And over 63%, they have a score of 30 or more. Web impact, we have Uganda with the highest average indicator score, but on the other hand, individually, University of Cape Town again leads in one of these indicators. Average indicator score of 24, and almost half of the institutions, they have a good score. Finally, sustainability, Uganda again has the highest average indicator score. Cape Town with the highest ranked institution, 31.2, the average indicator score for all the 69 ranked institutions. And finally, over half of the institutions, they are in this first edition of the rankings, they have a good score. And I think I'm gonna give back to my colleague Ashwin to continue with the final remarks. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Wesley. So I think that's what we can do at this time is this is an important event. I want you to mark in your calendars, please, because this is where we have dialogue. We of course will do more activities, with the association with other countries. We've spoken to a few of you who are keen to host something in your city, so we're happy to work with you all for that. But definitely the Africa Forum we do every year is what we want you to co-curate the content as well with us. Let's work on what is that do we need to discuss for the future for the African region. How do we talk of research, the impact of research, the impact of student recruitment? How do we make Africa a global hub? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? So it's going to be in Addis Ababa in 9th and 8th, 9th and 10th. The first day is the opening day, the opening dinner. So 9th and 10th of July. We'll send you an invitation to it as well. Okay. And so we'll stop here. We can take any questions now before I get to the next part, which is a short presentation on a project which I thought, when I heard about this project earlier from Professor Oyewole, I said we should talk about this here, and he'll explain a little bit more later. But do we have any questions so far on the methodology, on the results, anything you'd like to ask to Wesley and myself? Yes, please.
Thank you very much. I noted that you kept saying 30% had a good score and above. How did you come about 30%?
Okay, I'll give Wesley to answer
Yes,
this
because I wanted to know how,
Sure.
seemed to be the benchmark.
Yeah, it's basically a threshold for us to have some sort of reference. We could have chosen the institutions that had at least 20, at least 50, but considering the scores that we received here, we identified that typically the institutions that were going well, they had at least this score of 30, considering the regional context. Of course, if we compared the global university rankings, probably we would say the institutions that had at least 50 in the score, because at the global picture, the good institutions were performing like this. So it's just an angle. We can change the score, but we wanted to identify the percentage of institutions that at least cross that threshold, that so we can compare, okay, there are more institutions with a good score in academic reputation than in the other indicator. But of course, we can change the threshold. It's just a figurative way.
Okay, thank you. I needed to know whether that was across the world or this was for this.
Only for these 69 institutions in Sub-Saharan Africa rankings. Yes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. My name is Professor Simon Otwanya, Vice Chancellor, University of Nigeria, Nsukka. Permit me if I am taking us a little back, but I felt it was something important. My colleague from ABU Zaria spoke about it, and I think I need to say something more. With respect to indicators, I feel content, academic content, is important for universities. The reason is some universities are peculiar, and it's been highlighted earlier on that there are peculiarities with some universities. Our university, University of Nigeria, for instance, is a land-grant university, the first in Africa. And so there are things that are unique to University of Nigeria. Secondly, in Nigeria, the National Universities Commission, which is the regulatory body in our country, insists on what they call CCMAS, Core Curriculum Minimum Academic Standard, for every Nigerian university. And they insist that we must teach courses that are unique to Africa. An instance is the African customary law that is compulsory for every undergraduate of a Nigerian university. So I think that content is important. I also feel that within the realm of the rankings, information is important to various universities. Like the deadline that have been given, those of us here, we take advantage of it. There may be some universities that may not actually know about this deadline. And the only thing they will see is release of result of rankings. So it will be a good thing that information dissemination is increased across all universities in Sub-Saharan Africa, in Africa, and the rest of the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Simon. So one question, counter question to all of you here today. Do we believe that the region produces exceptional research in any specific areas, like, for example, in African studies and African law? Do we believe that? We do believe, right? So if we believe our region here is doing exceptional work, let us try to have a larger representation of African scholars in the academic reputation survey. So we are not looking at curriculum. The QS rankings is not looking at whether you have a specific curriculum in specific to Africa or you're looking at global curriculum. We are looking at the impact of whatever you're doing. You can be localizing your subjects there. So if you're localizing as per the CMAS, CCMAS, which is great, I think we respect that. I think we need to start increasing the representation of African scholars, researchers, academics in the academic reputation survey. And that's a task we would like to, of course, ask the Association of African Universities, with your support and with the members' support, to disseminate this information now out to the members. Because once the information goes out, we can have you submit data. We can, of course, increase that representation of African universities. And hopefully next year, when we are back here at the association, we might need a bigger space to celebrate this ranking launch. Yeah, so I hope that kind of answers you your question. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. My name is Uchenna Uzo, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic, Pan-Atlantic University, Nigeria. So thank you for your presentation and for the invitation. I agree with you that there's a need to have some kind of think tank or some advisory group made up of senior leaders from Africa to take another look at improving on the indicators that have been shared. And I'm not coming at it from the angle of what is indigenous to Africa, but I believe that there's also something that Africa has to share that can have a global impact in terms of how we look at those, particularly in the area of how you define what a good learning experience is, beyond the two indicators that were provided. I think that there's a lot more that could be built into that. And it's just to form a team that can study that carefully, and then that should enrich what QS is doing. Thank you very much.
Excellent. I think what I would like to do today is, again, I'm saying we are here at the historic, very significant association body here. QS has regional advisory groups We have one group in the Middle East. We have another group in Asia. We have one in Europe. If we could establish an interim group of a few leaders where we can come to you for advice on certain things we are doing, not just rankings. This is also the conferences we run. We would like to get more African participation in our conferences we are doing in Asia and in Europe and in the US, because that's when we would get more recognition in academic reputation. And I think, I've been to few of your universities. I've been to Covenant. I intended to go to SSA University, but of course I heard such great things. I think we are not promoting our academic institutions and our research excellence enough. Because what we believe is we are good in what we do. We don't need to kind of promote ourselves, but that's something we need to do. So maybe this small group today, under the chairmanship of Professor Oyewole, we can create a small group of, 4, 5, 6 people who will work with us to be our advisory, and I'll propose these names back to QS when I go back, and we'll force start to engage with you all. And next year, we can try to make the group bigger because we want to engage in dialogue here, right? So thank you so much. So I think we can't take any more questions because I see already our MC has already gone up to the stage. Yes. Good, thank you.
Right, put your hands together for Dr. Axwin, please. Great moment of dialogue. And now at this moment, let me introduce, welcome on board, Professor Olushola Oyewole, to do a great introduction for a cutting-edge platform that the AAU has created. Please put your hands together for Professor Oyewole.
Thank you. As part of our mandate at the Association of African Universities, we want to see that universities in Africa do research that are relevant and that contributes to our development. And because of this, we've developed a platform that captures research publications in universities in Africa, real time. And the advantage of this is that by this platform, your university can know your strengths research-wise. You can even go ahead to know the individuals making substantive contributions in research in your universities. Another thing that we can do with this platform is that researchers in Africa working in the same field who have not been contacting each other for so many years can now be identified through this platform. And if you are connected to this platform, you can know the people to connect to should you want to have some joint research outside your country. Please, in the next few minutes, I'm going to call on the Director of Research and Programs in AU, Professor Ama, to share with us what we call the African Research, Innovation and Development Platform, AFRID. Professor Ama.
Thank you very much, our distinguished Secretary General, Professor Oyewole, for the opportunity. Enoch, yes, thank you very much. So distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is the platform that we have developed. The essence of the platform is to connect African scholars, institutions, and research communities. So it is not a ranking platform, even though one of the collateral benefits is ranking. So the aim of the AFRID is to connect African scholars. We believe that we are doing fantastic work, and we need to make sure that scholars on the continent are connected. So when you go to the AFRID network, this is the interface. This is the first thing that you will see, and it enhances academic networking, research tracking, and collaboration across the continent. Please, can you? And then when you log in, this is the first thing you see. This is the interface. It shows that currently we have about 2,100 universities on the continent. Now, these are the universities that have web presence. They have at least one output which is online. And we know that we have some universities on the continent who do not have any online presence at all. But we believe that this number is appreciable given the total estimated number of universities. And then here we have nearly 240,000 scholars who are on the platform, and then boosting over 6.8 million publications. Just below it, Maybe I'll start from the left. So on the left, you see dashboard and then institutions, scholars, publications, research fields. So all of these domains are domains that people can connect on. You can have interinstitutional collaboration, you can have interscholar collaboration, and many such things that come from there. And then if you look at the research fields, please click on the research fields. Yes. So we have tried to also aggregate scholars that are working in specific research fields into clusters, or what we might call communities of practice. So if you take, for instance, we have a community of practice called machine learning. Any scholar working closely related to that field will be captured in that area. It shows that currently we have over 3,000 scholars working on machine learning on the continent. And then it shows that we have also nearly the same number working on artificial intelligence. So you see a host of research fields: public health, renewable energy, molecular biology, climate change, microbiology, many fields. And then it gives indication of the total number of scholars that are working in that particular field. And this provides impetus for collaboration. When you click it, you're able to connect. Can you go back to the dashboard? Yes. Now, we have papers that have been published on the continent dating back to the early 1900s. But this is just showing, I think, a 25-year margin. You can increase it to all time, 60 years, 50 years, 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, to gauge and have a sense of what is happening within that domain. This also helps us to track whether our research profile or our research output is declining or not. You can compare over time to see whether you are climbing, you are stagnant, or you're declining. So that is also very important. And then to the extreme right, we give indication of the regional, sub-regional distribution in terms of contribution to publications and citations. So the citations are in green, and then the publications are in blue. It shows that the dominant force here is North Africa, where we have many citations and publications coming from there. We have captured 386 institutions in that region, which constitutes about 18% of the full complement of universities we have. Publications, 45%, citations, 35%. So a large corpus of knowledge is resident in this particular region. We can see analogous statistics for Southern Africa, East Africa, West Africa, and Central Africa. That is there. Now, please go to research fields. Yes, click on any one of them, please. So here we have come to one research field, and here it is giving indication of, this is just the overview. You can see it here. This is the overview. You have scholars, you have institutions, then you have analytics and collaboration. So along this 5 domains, we can indicate what is happening. Click on analytics, please. Let's see. So this gives indication of what is happening in that subfield or that community of practice. You're able to see what is happening. So it shows that a few years ago, nothing was there at all. And then you see a sharp ascent around 2010, thereabout. So this is also information that will help universities when it comes to high throughput decision making in terms of areas they need to focus on addressing that. Can you go back still to research fields? Maybe collaboration? We have indicated that the cardinal principle for establishing AFRED is for collaboration among universities, scholars, individuals, researchers on the continent. So here again, we're able to see who and who is working together. We've taken one person, let's say Etienne Bernard. It gives indication of how that person is linked to other scholars on the continent. This is using the previous collaboration as a key indicator. So you're able to see how the person is relating to that, where the individual is nested, which university the person is coming from, and then some other indicators relating to what the person is doing in terms of citation, impact, and the rest. So even though we said it is for collaboration and for linking scholars up, it has collateral benefits, which includes the ability to rank and all of that. We can take one university, so go to institutions. So here again, we can see the number of institutions that we have on board. It gives, for instance, University of Cape Town. You can scroll down, choose any of them of your choice. We can just go there. Any not particular order, and one of them is fine. Okay, anyone that's present here? Okay. So, can you go back? Scroll down to anyone that's present here if you can see some. Yes. Yes. So this is for the University of Ghana. In the University of Ghana, in the database, we have about 1,300 researchers. We can see it there. And then we can see their rankings on the continent. When we come to the left, we see citations. So these 1,300 scholars have garnered nearly 900,000 citations. And then these citations emanated from about 46,000 publications. So we're able to see the scholars. Can you go down the research food demographics? So within a particular university, we're also able to identify and isolate specific areas that is contributing to the corpus of knowledge that university is generating. So if you take, for instance, the University of Ghana, we see mental health, we see climate change, we see public health, machine learning, epidemiology as dominant domains within the university, which means that if the university is looking at areas that are underserved in their corpus of literature, they need to look at areas beyond these areas, because these are their strengths. If they want to strengthen other domains, it wouldn't be these particular areas. And then we see the field-weighted citation impact also on the right. Yes. Can we go back? We share, and I'm going to end on this. I'm told that I had only just about 5 or 10 minutes. We also share grants on the AFRID platform. We show grants that are running. So funding opportunities. How can they connect to this platform?
Okay. So there's a point. Yes, an important note on how higher education stakeholders here can connect to the AFRID platform.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Enoch, is it possible to show the link? I think it's afrit.aau. Yeah, because it's HHPPS. Yeah, so yeah. Afric.aau.org. And it's a secure hyperlink. So HTTPS, I think. Yeah, so this is it. If you click on this, it will take you to the AFRID platform. Thank you very much.
Okay. And also join in. So join in the guest up here, Professor Kenneth Matengu, please join them as well. President of AAU, please join them as well. An applause for them. Okay. So the aim of this gathering, I will share the microphone with the Ashwin to just give a prelude.
Okay, so what we wanted to do is recognize those institutions which are ranked in this edition. So it's not a grand ceremony, but it's just our way of recognizing you for your efforts and motivating you to the future as we work together to recognize what potential work we can cover for you in the next few months and few years. So we will just announce institutions from whoever we know are here, and if you have RSVP'd, we have you on the list. We can then announce your names and proceed forward.
Okay. Yes. So the first university is Ashesi University. Applause for Ashesi University, please. I think up will be fine. Yes. Yes. One more photograph up here. Splendid. Yeah. Events platform backdrop, please. One more. Great. The next university is Africa University Zimbabwe. Splendid. Yes, so let's keep the event platform backdrop on the screen, please. Namibia, UNAM, Namibia.